Okay, in the next couple of sessions, we're going to look at a few simple things you can do with your physical body to help transmit the emotional content of your story to your audience. And we're going to start with your eyes. Have you ever heard the saying, the eyes are the window to the soul? What this saying is referring to is that a person's eyes give clues as to what they're thinking and feeling. For example, if a person smiles with just their mouth, you can tell that the smile is false or forced. However, when the person is really feeling happy or smiley, it shows through their eyes. And that's the key right there. When you're really feeling what it is you're singing about, it'll be apparent in the shape and vibrancy of your eyes and also in the physical direction in which they're pointed. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a few deep breaths and just relax and center yourself. Now imagine as though you're singing about the sky. And you're looking up at the clouds and watching them float gently across the sky. Can you see it? Now think about soft, cool, green grass beneath your feet. Can you see it? Wriggle your toes and feel the blades of grass between them. Okay, you can open your eyes. In most cases, when I asked that you close off all other distractions from your outside environment by closing your eyes and really focus on and imagine the sky, for instance, in most cases, your eyes will have moved upward behind your eyelids. Am I right? And then, still without distraction, still having your eyes closed, you began to imagine the grass beneath your feet. What happened to your eyes then? Did they stay looking up? In most cases, they will have moved into a lower position underneath your eyelids. My point is, you were focusing on the images of the story I was telling, and your eyes followed the direction of those images. This is exactly the skill you need to learn as a singer when you're telling your story. You need to be able to block out all other distractions from your mind and your environment and just focus on the story you're telling. When you sing about the sky, see it in your mind and then project what you're seeing in your mind out through your eyes. If you're seeing the sky in your mind, your eyes would naturally be looking towards the sky. Okay? For example, birds flying high, you know how I feel. All right? However, there's a fine line between natural gesture and theatrical gesture. And when I say theatrical in this context, I mean overdone. For example, if I gestured every idea with my eyes, I might look something like this. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Okay? As you can see straight away, this greatly diminishes the authenticity of the story I'm telling because I normally wouldn't do this when I'm talking, right? I'd be much more natural, maybe something like this. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. All right. Then there's the other end of the spectrum where, you know how when we talk, sometimes we can be looking around, not looking at the person we're talking to, or thinking about something else while we're talking. In performance, if you do this, it might look something like this. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Alright? So, see how my eyes were unfocused? they were flitting around and generally showing that I was not emotionally connected to the story I was telling. Your aim is to balance the gestures you use, i.e., don't use your eyes and body to describe every word you're saying, but then again, don't say nothing with your eyes and body. And the most important things are to be aware of what your eyes are doing when you're singing and to deliberately use them to describe what you're feeling inside and what you're singing about. So something like this would be much more authentic and engaging. Birds flying high, eyes are up looking at the sky. You know how I feel. Come back gently and look at your audience. Sun in the sky. All right, you might keep that face, look over that way. Sun in the sky. You know how I feel. Come back to your audience, okay? Okay, so what about your hands? How can you best use them to describe the story you're telling? Well, much like we just discussed when we're working with your eyes, you don't want to be too theatrical with your movements, you know? For instance, if I was singing Someone Like You, there's no need for me to do this. I peer through windows, watch life go by, dreamed of tomorrow, but stayed inside. Okay? Believe it or not, this is a really common mistake that many singers make when they first start working with their bodies to tell the story. They try to act out every single word or idea they're singing, and it's truly not necessary or practical or authentic. Again, at the other end of the spectrum, you often see beginner singers freeze up in performance and do something like this. I peer through windows, watch life go by, dreamed of tomorrow, but stayed inside. Okay? Another way that singers make it obvious that they're either feeling nervous or simply concentrating on other things when they're storytelling is when they're fiddling with their shirt or their skirt, you know, or they have concentration face on like I just had. Yeah? Or you often see singers doing this. I peer through windows, watch life go by. All right? This one is a really common one because what do we do when we're afraid? Oh my God. You know, all of the feelings and emotions we experience are physically felt in specific parts of our bodies. For example, if you're feeling the love, you might do this. Oh, I love that so much. Okay, hand on chest, you're feeling it, your heart, you know. If you're feeling angry, you might do this. God, why don't they understand? You know, all of this sort of stuff, you know. If we're feeling sad, we might do this. All right? I had this weird thing that used to happen when I first started singing on the classical stage, where my hand would like randomly come up when I started singing. So I'd be singing away and all of a sudden, for no storytelling reason, my hand would just come up and sit beside me, you know? Was possessed, I tell ya. Had a mind of its own. Now, in order for me to stop doing that, I had to give my hand something else to do. So I began assigning jobs for it. When I sing this word, I want you to do that. You know, when I sing this phrase, I want you to do that. Okay? And so on and so forth. In other words, I had to practice the gestures I wanted my hands to perform so that they wouldn't just be doing their own thing, yeah? And this is where I repeat what I've said earlier. You perform that which you practice most. So prior to choreographing my hand gestures, during my practice, I'd just be letting my hands do whatever they felt like, which was, this. And so, that's exactly what they did when I performed, because that's exactly what they'd been practicing doing. Are you really seeing the benefits of practice and planning now? So ideally, you want to use the same concept we touched on when we talked about your eyes, and that is striking a balance between words that you use your hands for to emphasize and those that are best left unaccompanied by gesture. An example might be this. I peer through windows, watch life go by. So I'm focusing in the distance there, yeah? It's so far away. See what my hand is doing? I peer through windows. There it is in front of me. And then watch life go by. Dreamed of tomorrow, but stayed inside. So my hands are saying here, right here. I stayed right here. I stayed inside. All right. Notice how it wasn't overdone and that I only gestured on some of the words. And at times, the gestures I was using were just hints or suggestions of what I was feeling. I just want to say here that learning how to gesture and look and feel natural while you're doing it takes time and practice. It's also a trial and error process. On stage, you need to know what you look like, whether the actions you're using work or look natural or not. And again, this is where recording yourself with a video camera of some sort is extremely important. So you need to record yourself performing during your practice sessions and then watch that video back. It's simple, really. Keep what works, change what doesn't. So many singers come out on stage or perform during their lessons and their actions are all over the place. Sometimes they're overdone, sometimes they're underdone, and sometimes they just plain don't make sense with the words they're singing. And then again, at times, their gestures are making sense, but they're such small gestures that they'd hardly be detectable by someone sitting in the back row, for instance. As a performer, you need to be larger than life. What this means is that the gestures you make in normal conversation, see why I'm talking to you here, it's all fairly small, but the gestures you make in normal conversation, in performance, they need to be slightly emphasized or made bigger, hence the term larger than life. So when we do stuff like this, I peer through windows, watch life go by, dreamed of tomorrow, but stayed inside, right? Notice how my elbows were like stuck to my side, and also how my hands were not open or giving, all right? If you're inviting someone to take your hand or come with you somewhere, what do? In most cases, you extend your whole arm, right? It's the same with performance, only you add a hint of drama when you're inviting your audience to come with you into the story you're telling. So instead of this, I peer through windows, watch life go by, dreamed of tomorrow, but stayed inside. All right? You might do something like this. I peer through windows, watch life go by, dreamed of tomorrow, but stayed inside. All right? So go through your lyrics and decide what actions you could use on specific words. Watch other people perform. Go YouTubing and watch what the professionals do and take ideas from them. And most of all, remember that your body is just as much a part of your performance and storytelling as your voice. So use it.